Hi everyone. My name is Claudia, and I guess you heard about my debate background. So now a bit about the media and why I picked this topic, and why I think this is a good topic to do the workshop. So firstly, I was studied media management, so the management of the media and the culture, and I picked the track which was media. That was a few years ago when there was no TikTok yet. There was just the starting of the booming importance of Twitter, Snapchat, and other social media. So I was still in the age of having some local media and the news platforms in television, and then transition into convergency and the media being everywhere, especially in the internet. I think it's extremely important topic, especially after 2020, especially after pandemic, and especially considering that the last year we almost necessarily spent with the media platforms when we get lots of informations, and also with every year the importance or the dangers coming from the media or the benefits are growing. And I think second of all, about the debate context, there is literally intuitively every time when you heard about media in general, you know that there are pros and cons. You know that everything is coming with the price. So for example, when people from the companies are claiming that they are providing people entertainment, that they are collecting lots of profit, that they didn't charge lots of money for getting that, of course you need to pay some sort of price, right? So even if you are not paying to this company money directly, you might pay that in your data, you might pay that in being more addictive towards the internet and in influencing the people who can buy the advertisement to do this. So I think this is especially for debaters very cool to know how to weigh up some sort of benefit and how to debate the media motion. So I think based on the topic, you already might know that the characterization, it's something crucial or necessarily important to debate the media motions well. And what we're gonna do in this session, so what types of motion I will be talking about today? So there are lots of different types of motion, which include media, that might be about the digital information in general, which is social media, online news, and maybe they did more harm than good in protecting democracy or in general in functioning of the society. The other example is this house opposed dehumanization of villains in popular media. So of course the popular media, it's something a bit different than the news. We are probably talking about the streaming platforms. We are probably talking about the series. We are probably talking about video clips. We are probably talking about the games and the other types of things, which we will be talking more later. The third types of motions, which can be also included in the media group and connected to the social justice, as this house believes that the members of a minority group should oppose popular media that inaccurately portrays the culture, struggles, or history or traditionally marginalized group. Example, Hamilton or Mulan. Probably you heard about the musical or about the Disney production. Fourth example might be international media organizations should only use local reporters to cover foreign stories and events, which is clearly talking about the journalism and how the journalism should be done in particular context. Third type of media motion can be also connecting to the other type of motion, which is the politics, about the liberal media organization should actively glorify democratic candidates of color. So that's broadly some of the examples from the competitions from the last year, which I saw about the media. That might be also something which was the last weekend, like this house support the social media platforms banning the account of Donald Trump, or this house regrets the increasing amount of engagement in communication via social media by politicians. So there are lots and lots of examples, but I think there are some common points which are important to know in the media motions. If I'm talking too fast, if you have any questions, please type in the chat. I will be checking the chat. But also I put the presentation because I know that some people read or see when they are listening. So this is also quite helpful. Here are some of the links, which I think it's necessarily important in terms of doing some sort of research if you want to make some better conceptualization what the motion is talking about. So I think in that case, I will of course share the presentation later, but you can find, for example, the articles from the research centers or from the World's forums or from some sort of non-governmental organizations, what has changed in the digital society, how that's actually playing out, what are the trends which happened in the past, what are the research about the behavior of people, how the psychology was changed. So I think it's necessarily very cool, because usually people are researching the IR motions, like, oh, when there was like when there is an issue in Burma, probably there will be motion. I need to read about that and know more. I think media motions also require some sort of knowledge, and you will definitely make the better context or like better case in the debate if you are a bit familiar, and if you also can follow what kind of things can inspire some sort of CAs to set particular motions. Here we have some sort of the villains content, which you can also find later. For example, the 5 best villains in modern pop culture. You can also see how diversified is this group, what sort of, so that it's not only like the intuitive, the most awful person, but for example, Regina George from the Mean Girls, it's pointed as one of the best villains of pop culture. So I think that also present how that might be defined, what is the understanding of this. And then also some sort of research, the article from The Guardian in terms of how the pop culture make the gray area, who is the good boy and who is like the good boy in terms of like evil characters and the good characters. Second of all, also the portrayal of some sort of scars, some sort of mental diseases, or some sort of sadness in pop culture, how that in one hand might empower some sort of victims or like societies to see similarities, but also how that might create some sort of stereotypization or also some sort of confirmation bias toward particular patterns of behavior. And then there is also like supervillains help prevent evil in the world. There is also some sort of scientific research from the Scandinavian piece of media. Especially, I can recommend to watch, if you like, the criminal shows like American or British ones, to check the Swedish ones or like the Iceland ones, because they have completely different notions and completely different stories tell and the culture differences. Okay, that's not to me. Cool. So the next slide, it's basically also about the Hamilton and Mulan problems. So I think you can read there what are the problems with the audience, which they see the particular media, what are the thoughts from like the people who created this, why there like was canceled some sort of shows, or why some sort of issues are more important than like the entertainment purely for the audience. Types of media, which I will be talking about, I just made like a very basic classification for like 3 types. So the first one are like the news platforms. So BBC, the national TV, the places when you can find the information about the current world. There was also lots of popular motion by the time that this house supports the media platforms like 24/7 informing, what kind of impact that might have on the society. The second type of media, which we'll be covering here, are pop media and pop culture like Netflix, YouTube, TikTok, and like other that sort of things. And thirdly, like the social media, Facebook, Twitter, the one which directly engage you to interact with the other users, which encourage you to put the content. And I think based on all of this, these 3 media platforms have some things in common and some things have different, right? So for example, they have different purpose. All of them have some sort of accountability mechanisms, but they are of course different. So probably the news platforms have higher accountability level than the social media, because you don't need to prioritize the freedom of speech as the first place and the freedom to expression, but you have sort of legitimacy and authorization from the top to the information which are inputted. So I think then you have also like expectations from the audience, what people want to find in particular content. For example, in the Netflix, you just want to chill and you don't care if in the Stranger Things, the Dustin, it's like stalking the girl, like following her, because this is not the first thing which you're seeing. But if that will be like educational content in terms of how to approach in the relations or like what is the acceptable behavior, probably that will be not something which you will find in the book or which your parents encourage you to do. So I think there are also different expectations on the norms which are created in particular types of media. Ability to create content, as I said, like for example, to put the content into the BBC or the national TV, you need to have a very good story, you need to get paid for this, or you need to be the journalist with the high like uh, quite popular. For the social media, you can just become a blogger and try to build your audience. So all of these factors, the conclusion is, depend on the type of media which you need to discuss in the debate or which you want to address your case. You need to include the characterization, because this is not intuitive that all media platforms will have the same. Everything will be happen in exactly the same way. So I hope that this is something which is quite clear, or if you have any questions to that, also feel free to ask. Here, there are some sort of trends which will happen or which are which already happening in 2021. So I think I wanted to discuss with you what I found out and why I think it's important or interesting. So companies will need to address the social media team burnout. And I think especially now we are all bored when people are like, but COVID pandemic, it's important context to this debate. Sometimes it's not about the economy when you can't debate the debate about economics only about the COVID. But in terms of media, this is extremely important factor and change lots of things, and also change the responsibility which media have. So when you can't go out and when you have the national lockdown, you can't meet your friends, you can't exchange the ideas, you can't go to the university directly. The only source of communication which you are getting are things which you are reading in the platforms, but also you have much more time to read that, and nothing can stop you or distract you, right? Because sometimes when, for example, when I was a kid, my parents were like, oh, you shouldn't spend time with your computer, you should go out and like play, or like you should do other things. Now you can't do this, because even if you have a school, you need to do that via Zoom or like via laptop. If you have a homework, you need to do that via laptop. If you want to know what's happened in the world or like to talk to your friends, you need to do this via laptop. But also that is talking about the social relations, right? But imagine the business and all of the big companies, which they still need to generate the same revenue, when they still need to sell their products, and they needed to reorganize and create these special teams for the social media. And this is not something which will pass, right? Because we don't know how vaccines will go, which means that the trend of companies needed to address this, it will be still present in the 2021, that we already know that wasn't like a pit stop for like 3 months or something, but this is some sort of prevalent change. The other social media trend, it's fee-based fan communities will grow. So every time some companies or places which try to get the promotion, they are doing their trial program. So they are offering you lots of things for free, but then later they need to find a way to create the revenue and also to satisfy people to get the content which they deserve. Sometimes because of the limitations of the age, sometimes because you don't want to offend someone, or about the political views, or just you don't want to deal with the internet trolls, you need to decrease the amount of people who will be able to access particular services. And if you know that people are neither addicted to this type of services or they necessarily connect this type of services to their happiness, you know that you can charge the fee, which also it's something which will be the trend in the internet community and in the media platforms. The other type of trend is building trust through the content delivered by any featuring humans. So again, I think here it's hard to see the someone who is talking to you, right? So you need to have the different sort of trust and different reading to the content, because people will not use the persuasiveness directly or sometimes the charisma, because it's different to do this via online things, right? So the human connection losing on the value, but probably the effectiveness in selling the services, the effectiveness in building trust based on the product, it's something which will taking the lead in the media and in other types of relations. The other trend is the rise and resurgence of private groups and platforms. And this is a bit different than the fee-based, because even on the Facebook, you are seeing that lots of debaters spending time in shit posting or like pop posting or whatever other like group, right? The reason it's not because like we all like to like limit the circuit of people and we don't want to appeal to like lots of them, but sometimes it's more safety. You can feel more freely if only the members of the particular community can see the content. But also the case from Poland, we are having now the massive protest against the abortion law, which is one of the most restrictive in the world. And for the groups, for girls and for the women, when they were discussing like the issues about the pills or like about the abortion, there was troll accounts, the fake accounts, which were replacing the links to the abortion help for the like pro-life organizations, and lots of hate, lots and lots of abusiveness, leaking the stories of personal people who are seeking for the mental health help and trying to talk to people. So that's why when people are engaging even more into the social media, they're trying to make this more private and also create the more safe space, especially when also even on the Instagram or like the other platforms, there are lots of fake accounts when people are trying to encourage you to send them your pictures to, I don't know, to advertise jewelry and trying to find some sort of information from point. Yes, I can show the slide with the second point again, but I will show this presentation. And I think I can also let me give a second. I will just share you the link now. So you can also track this. So you can also track this here. So now in the chat, there is a link to presentation, which I hope will be helpful. Oh yeah, so the example which I used was Poland. So basically, I'm following the social media, lots of different platforms. So in Poland, there was an issue with the swapping the abortion links and like all of the other issues, but also lots of troll content and lots of that sort of things. About the private groups as well. I think the Instagram also, it's changing their algorithm. So since I think 2021 or a bit before, they didn't show how many people likes the picture or the content on Instagram, that also have some sort of psychological basis on like the people who are follow the particular content. Also, like people are encouraged to create like the closed Instagram account with like only if you accept who is watching your account, because there was lots of stealing the accounts by the fake Russian accounts, which means that you might lost your business, and especially if you are doing e-commerce via that. So the rise and resurgence of the private group and platforms, it's to provide the safety and the better communication between the people who want to share the content and who want to like realize their goals in the internet. The other trend, it's influencers will become vital in B2B, not just B2C. And I think it's important that now there is like increasing trend when the micro influencers and collaborators with the companies necessarily need to use the marketing in internet, because they lost any other way of doing this, which is necessarily important. And the brands also need to like reach the new audience. And also look how much the brands need to change strategy, right? So I'm not sure how this is popular in the other countries, but in the country where I'm living, which is Poland, you have lots of people who are older, who didn't use the computer, who didn't use the laptop or like media platforms. And that creates lots of issue. For example, when my grandfather was sick and he needed to go to check what is his COVID test result, they sent him a text message with the link to the online platform where you need to have electronic signature made. You know, my grandfather had like a phone which have no color screen. So that was extremely problematic, right? And lots of businesses always had like a two sorts of communication. So they had one strategy for like older people, how to like gather them, the direct marketing or selling, and they were using social media or like the other media platforms to attract the young people. Now they need to like change this, and they also need to find the way how to still distribute content and still attract like the same amount of people to not have the economic losses. So the micro influencers might be important. You might see lots of now like the doctors or like people who are a bit older who are participating in the TikTok, who are trying to raise the awareness. Lots of doctors which are like from the from the uh, from the immunology system like field, they are engaging in these social media platforms and trying to encourage young people to share their content, doing some content which is directly addressed to like the older people. I'm seeing so many requests to the presentation. I think I need to change the sharing permission. So let me give a second to do this. Yeah, I forgot to do this. Uh, Yeah, doing that now. So now it should be everything fine. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing that many people can see this now. That's good. The next might be socially conscious values extend to imagery as well. What's happened now? I can view the chat. What's going on? Oh, yeah, it's fine now. Cool. So I think it's also I think that was a trend like 10 or 15 years ago, when there was like lots of pictures for like the charity organizations with like the poverty porn or like famine porn. So you were presenting the drastic images and you were trying to influence people action. And then the research shows in the media that stopped being effective because people become like less vulnerable or like less sensitive to that sort of information, which means that that wasn't that much important anymore. But the difference with the socially conscious values now, it's look how the numbers changed in terms of the research, how the different types of people are getting access to the content or more engaged with the content, which means that the expectations towards the content are changing, which means that the standards to create the content are changing. So this is the sort of the analysis which we need to make, right? So when more people have access to social media, these people are different. There are new base of consumers, and every consumer might have some sort of expectation or some sort of prerequisite information or like what they wanted to see there, which means that you might have new viewers. So you need to feed the content to them, which might be neither the challenge or which might have some clashing values or responding to the needs of the people. Especially during the Black Lives Matter protest, especially during the other uprisings, this is something which is also necessarily important in the trends. Social media is part of everyone's job. So I think people who were getting the job in any other field, like teachers or who are not like the IT teachers, were like, oh, I don't need to use the computer that much. Like, this is not necessarily important for my job. I can just talk about the history. I can do math on the classes and in the direct contact. Now change, right? Because social media is everyone's job. If you were working in the company which were like selling cars or like which were manufacturing, Now you also need to find someone need to be responsible for social media, and the switch was so fast that you didn't have ability to fit your company. You couldn't make like the workshops, or like you tell people and like, oh, you will be the intern for first like 2 months, we will told you how to do the social media and how to deal with this. Like, look what's happened to the restaurants and like the food delivery services when everything went closed in some European countries. It's like 3 months when they closed everything. The hotels in all of the places. When you can't go there, you need to find a way how to still make profit and how to attract people, or how to still keep in contact. So you have bartenders, like the chiefs from the kitchen, which are doing like on the Zoom some sort of sessions, workshops where you're trying to keep your audience. So now the social media become like the part of your job on like daily tasks, or like even like normally like media channels of communication. Like so many new accounts on YouTube or Instagram, because it's just like you need to make profit somehow and you need to survive. So I think this is another like trend which will be still present in a 2021, which changed the economy and like how the job market function. User-generated content grows. As you know, when one person posting something, it's also lots of encouraging mechanisms to another person to respond, to create like the network. Also, you are just like reading something which you disagree, and there is lots of people which have different opinions. You feel that you should do this, or like you just bored, right? Like you can see people how many times you can spend like by typing the messages. So people are looking for the other types of entertainment, which means that the content which users are generating when they are sitting on the home office, or when they are quarantined for 2 weeks in their hotel room, or where like they have much more free time because they don't need to spend like 2 hours in the traffic jam when they are trying to go to job. All of these things are reflecting in the changes, how the media organizations changed their work to media as a user changed, and how the other things are functioning. Journalism, media, and technology. There is also another link. You can click on this below the title. And there are probably like the website when you can find the other sorts of information. I basically copy the most important ones. So again, here is about the rapid digital change following the shock delivered by the COVID-19, how the habits changed, how there was like, how the return to the normal reality, it's not yet very present. And the virtual world, it's something which overcome the physical world, which we knew in the previous years. Giant tech platforms. Here's something which we need to be even more aware, right? So when people are more bored, or when social media are becoming your main tools of communication, or getting the support, or spreading the information, there are also more and more prevalent questions. Where are the boundaries of the free speech? When we should ban someone? After the Capitol riots, there was like the banning Donald Trump Twitter account. But there are also the questions, right? Like, if you ban Trump Twitter account, would that not happen? Or like, if you will not read that in his post. But in the other hand, maybe if you will not ban this, and if this is like the account of the president of the United States and of the leader, maybe that signal that you legitimize that sort of opinions, and they are allowed to be there, or like some sort of other things. So I think there is lots of issues with the political tensions, the nature of the communication, the people being pissed on their governments, not having a job, having lack of the economical resources, the government being capable to being like, you know what, you are like bringing the death to the streets if you are going out and you are killing the society. This is literally the quote from the national television in Poland from November, when there was protests against abortion and thousands of people go out of the streets, and the people try to blame them for bringing the pandemic out and like killing the older members of the population. And you know that people who didn't have internet, they believe in this. So like when I go to my grandma and I talk to her, she was like convinced that this leftist parties, the people who are fighting for women's rights, are crazy. Like the LGBT people who are trying to get the tolerance and recognition in this country, they don't taking care about the older people. That being said, there are still lots of issues all the time, which they were present with the social media platforms, how much we should allow people to create content. Should we create some sort of censorship? Should we put the fact-checking mechanisms? But now this is even more important because there is like no way to escape this. And this is the main problematic part. The other types, I think about the AI, there are lots of debates and lots of issues. I think people need to be more specific in that sort of debate in terms of what exactly is the consequence. Because when you judge the debates and when you hear that these AI bots or like this artificial intelligence will take your job, might be dangerous, might be conscious, might create some sort of things, and you are like, Alexa will be dangerous, like Siri will be dangerous, like it's really hard to see what are the real consequences unless people will analyze that. So if you have an issue with the chatbots that, I don't know, people are getting predicted information or like that you need to give more of your data, then explain what is that directly and what is the change with the new technologies included in the media for that. How the media leaders do. So here is what are the people who are influential on this market are saying. So of course they prepared a different strategy for 2021. So they already presumed that they will need to do more remote working and switch to the reader-focused business models. You know that even now, lots of office like still allow people to work from home, even if you technically can go to work, because they don't need to pay the electricity bill, they don't need to pay the rent, they have like the lower expenditures. So people are also like, I want to have a job when if the next pandemic will come, can work with my laptop from home and I don't need to have the financial shock or the other issues. So also the people who are planning their business, like the CEOs or like editors, they're also thinking what sort of innovations or the strategy they should implement, on which pieces they should focus. Here are also some sort of data. I will not go and read them directly because you all have access to presentation and you can do this. And I don't think that this is necessarily that very crucial for our workshop. But it will be interesting for you because that's like some sort of numbers and some sort of like quantification, how that actually looks like, and maybe some more context. What else might surprise in the 2021 and like what are the risks? So first, for face-to-face contact after a year of lockdown, the question is how people will approach this. Will the concerts or like the meetings or like how the dating life will look like there are lots of stuff which like people are trying to like predict and check. How the journalist job will be working, like the reporting, how the subscriptions for the platforms, how much that will cost, if the trend will be still prevalent. Also, here is like I think extremely important. So videos become the key way how we are seeing the world now, because we like to visualize stuff. We don't like to only read. But also the development of the technology make this extremely dangerous, because you can create fake news in 5 minutes and very persuasive one. You can create the misinformation. You can cut the part of the information and post this. If you use the clickbaits, if you know how to full algorithm, if you know how to make the advertisement, this is something which is also quite dangerous for people. And it's hard to like verify some sort of information when you can go out and you don't know if that's true. 5G, I think the technology issue stopped. Please never say that we will leave the European Union as Poland if we will not get 5G technology. Sometimes it's better to not try to guess than provide the fake information. If you are interested about the 5G technology, the approach of the other countries, I think you can also just put in the Google and track that. I don't think that this is necessarily important for this workshop. Cool. And now the final 20 minutes part, which is strictly like the debate context-wise and how to do this. So I think you need to think about 4 parts, essentially 2 parts, which then gave you the easy outcome, which will be the mechanism and the impacting and operating on the particular spectrum. So firstly, the characterization. A, who is receiving the content? For example, if we are discussing villains in pop culture, probably the content receiver will be not like 50 years old man who is running the company, who already have lots and lots of information about how the world looks like, have his favorite movies, have some sort of grounded stuff. But probably the audience who might be changed, who will receive this content, are the young brains, are the young people who didn't have yet exposure to the adult world, who didn't met many people yet, who didn't have like prerequisite how things should look like, who didn't create their stance yet. Which means that the most influential receivers of the content probably will be the younger people. But there is a different thing when you are talking about the election and campaigning content. Like lots of political campaigns and elections, despite pandemic happened, so the whole campaigning process were shifted into the internet. But now the older people who are the voters also need to receive the content, right? So you need to find a way how to attract them. And this is also necessarily important. When you are making the movies or like musicals about the minorities, of course, like the audience might be like everyone, but probably influential audience, which might be hurt or which might be like the behavior change. Also, it's not everyone, right? So you need to find a way in which that will be something important for these people, something different or something influential over the other existing informations or the base of biases. The conclusion out of the first point of characterization is you need to explain to people who will get the information which you are trying to impact or mechanize or make their value, which is important. Second of all, who is creating content? As I said in the first point, there are different characterizations, right? So there is a different type of people who are creating content on the social media, on their private accounts, which are like, have no legitimacy, have no immunity, have no like the political position in the state, which are like from grassroots movements or are like social activists. The different type of creator content are the big media concerns, which are like Fox News, which are usually like connected to the Republicans. The different creator of content will be like the Netflix platform, the streaming programs which you can receive. The other type of creating content are the presidents, which they're using Twitter or when they are going to make the press conference, right? That depends. So you also, it's not intuitive that if you're discussing the mechanism that if we tell people the fake news, then they will be stupid, they will be not wearing masks and they will be not aware. No, the question is, what are the characterization at the middle point of the people who will be creating the content? Or who are the content creators which will have the biggest amount of audience based on their previous position or based on the sensitivity of topic which they are delivering? That need to be also explained. The third type of characterization, which need to be done in the media motion, is what type of content we are talking about. Are you talking about the post? Are you talking about the article? Are you talking about the whole research? Are you talking about the video? Are you talking about the TikTok? Are you talking about the movie? Are you talking about the interview? Are you talking about the political debate and exchange of opinions? That matters, especially in some sort of motion. So for example, when the motion is about the regretting the involvement of politicians in the communication via social media, the question is, how are they communicating? Like, what is their usual tool? Are they writing essays to you? Are they calling you? Are they like addressing to you? Are they doing that by memes? Are they doing that by the satire? Are they doing that by statistics? Are they sending you the pictures of their dog? Like, that's important, right? So you also need to characterize what content you are referring in your case. Fourthly, what is the transmission tool? Again, that's a big difference, because if you are using the traditional media to make your statement, probably you will not have live comments there. Probably You also will be checked by someone. Probably you will use your advisor. Probably that also needs to be impartial if you are talking about some sort of protest, because you don't want to create riots, you don't want to offend someone. But if the transmission tool, it's like some sort of uprising group using the social media account, then there is different. There is like a more mess. There are the reasons why people ban the internet during like the Arab Spring, during like the uprisings in the Middle East, or like the other events, right? So there is a different how people can communicate, how people can receive the information, and where they can find that. And firstly, how the process looks like. So how likely is that the 50% of the Democratic voters will see the statement from Donald Trump? How likely is that people who are not invested, young people who are not invested in the major political leaders will know about the new grassroots leaders? How likely is that people will know about the Paris climate agreement? How likely is that people will know what is TPP, even if you will transmit that and broadcast in the national television? How likely are people knowing about the fire in the Australia? How likely are people know the details about the Myanmar and current political situation? How likely are people to know? So you see the question, right? And I think you will say probably the response is it depends. Well, if the judge will say it depends, that means that you don't have a case in debating, which means that even if you analyze to me that the audience are the young people, even if you analyze to me that the content creator people who want to keep you informed and participating in democratic process, even if you tell me that that will be the perfect video with the perfect statistics, amazing stuff, even if you told me that the transmission tool will be the traditional media broadcasting in the prime time, if you didn't explain me what is the likelihood that people will watch that, or what is the likelihood that people will listen to that, then what is your case? I mean, if they watch, you already get at least like information case, or like informing impact, or like encouraging people to participate. If you prove that that might change their behavior or affect them, then you can get your like influence or change of the behavior of the pattern, or like the tipping point, how we like to call this. So that's also important bits of characterization which need to be done. Second of all, and here is something also when people forgetting, in the media debate, there still exists other stuff, which means the school and education system still exists. Your parents and their influence over you, their power still exists. The friends which you have, the patterns of behavior which you are seeing in your community still exist, which means that media probably will be not the only way how you can achieve some sort of information. So you need to explain what might exist besides media, or why the media might be superior towards the other information, why they might create, for example, the balance for the information, or why their goal and their responsibility is to overcome some sort of information. So the contextualization depends on the motion and how you link your case to the pre-existing things. Second of all, what kind of societal norms exist around, and are they corresponding to what is present in the media? So probably if America is mostly racist, or like have lots of like vocal racist people, even if you create the best pro-minorities, pro-diversity campaign in the Republicans media, it's unclear why this social norm which you're trying to create will overcome the previous ones. So you need to spend the time explaining the mechanism, how neither the norms are similar. So you're just prolonging or just like expanding the particular mechanism, or how you are trying to create the new mechanism to give people some sort of more choice or ability. Thirdly, why the source will be tipping point, which will create the change of behavior. And this is crucial for that types of debate. So when I am a woman and I'm watching the Millennium Stieg Larsson series, which is about the violence against women and presenting the women villain taking the revenge on the men which like raped her or like hurt her in the past. What is the likelihood that I will go and do the same out of the street? Probably this is too big impacts that I will copy this behavior as an individual. But maybe that will change some sort of thinking, or maybe my self-esteem, or maybe that show me the options. Like, I don't know, that's just like an example, right? But you need to be sure that the change which you are trying to make of the behavior, it's something which is realistic. And I'm always telling to people during feedbacks or when I'm judging, when you are giving me the case in the motion about like the society, about the media, do you think I can read about your case tomorrow in the news and that will be not a science fiction, but that will be something which is likely to happen? So, for example, when there are like anti-vaxxers, and if the anti-vaxxers now their content will be banned, and then will be only the content about pro-vaccines and like safety measurement against COVID. Do you think that will be the tipping point? And the most extreme anti-vaxxers will be like, oh yeah, now I don't have access to the information and I'm changing my behavior. So just to know who you can impact, who you can change, or to which extent you can make the change. To not try to claim the extreme stuff, just to be more grounded. And the tipping point don't necessarily need to be for 100% of people, might be for 10%, but the 10% might be important. Or the tipping points don't need to be change your life, become like the personal coach or whatever. That might be just like the small patterns. This is something which happens with the environmental changes, with the policies, pro-environmental, etc. That being said, when you are doing all of these steps, the mechanism, so the analyze how from point A you will come to point B and why that will happen are easier to buy, right? Because they are tangible, because they are contextualized, because they are nuanced towards the motion, because you can see how this process is actually going. And lastly, you just need to quantify what is changing and why this is important. So I can tell you lots of things about how cool is Joker from the Batman movies, or like how cool is Walter White from the Breaking Bad. But if I will not impact why this is important to present them, why this is important to talk about that sort of topic, or like why this is bad, or like why people shouldn't like glorify Pablo Escobar or shouldn't sympathize with him based on what's happening in Colombia, blah, blah. Therefore, you need to finish their case with the conclusion on some sort of the final thought. So basically that's all what I wanted to say, and you have like 10 minutes for the questions if you have any. And I'm happy to respond. If you will have question later, you can also text me, or like if you will need some sort of materials that I'm also happy to share. But please remember that that's very like easy to find or like search in the internet. And if you know what you are looking for, I'm recommending to searching for like some sort of PDFs where like people who are doing the research. There is also a very cool book about the burnout and how like people struggle in 2020 in being like overwhelmed by all of the media platforms and not seeing the escape, and how that influence like your productivity and all of the things, which is basically something which can help you to analyze stuff, where is the tipping point for the behavior pattern, where there is like the negative sides of the being addictive, what sort of innovations happen during the media or like coming from media, what sorts of AI involvement is actually happening. There was also some sort of articles that like Microsoft fired some sort of journalists and replaced them by bots and by AI because they are capable to like write basic articles. So if you know that, you can also easily conceptualize what is this about and like